Book Review: The Best We Could Hope For by Nicola Kraus. Nicola Kraus, co-author of the best-selling The Nanny Diaries, steps out on her own in The Best We Could Hope For, a novel that is as ambitious as it is intimate. With this solo work, Kraus delivers a piercing, multi-layered portrait of a family unraveling and reassembling in the wake of generational trauma, emotional neglect, and the ever-complicated terrain of motherhood. It is a novel that peels back the polished veneer of family life to expose the raw, often unspoken truths that reside underneath. A story of three women, one inheritance. At the heart of the novel are three generations of women: Hope, her daughter Sarah, and her granddaughter Miriam, whose lives are bound together by blood, secrets, and the weight of choices made decades before. The novel begins in the present day with Sarah, a therapist who finds herself unexpectedly pregnant at 39. This unplanned pregnancy triggers an internal reckoning that draws her back to the trauma of her childhood and her fraught relationship with her own mother, Hope. Hope, a product of mid-century expectations and suffocating domesticity, is both a deeply sympathetic and, at times, deeply frustrating character. She embodies the kind of maternal ambivalence that is rarely given such a spotlight in fiction. Hope's story, gradually revealed through flashbacks and shifting perspectives, is one of abandonment, compromise, and suppressed ambition. Her daughter Sarah grew up in the emotional fallout of these choices, learning early on to fend for herself, to seek affirmation from external sources, and to hide her vulnerability. Now, with Sarah poised to become a mother herself, she must confront the question at the heart of the novel: what do we inherit from our parents, not just genetically, but emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually? And can we choose what to pass on to our children? Unflinching honesty in voice and narrative, Kraus writes with an unflinching honesty that is both brutal and bracing. The narrative voice shifts between Sarah and Hope, giving readers a complex, layered understanding of both women's inner worlds. While Sarah's chapters are suffused with the voice of a modern woman trying to do the work, therapy, mindfulness, inner child healing, Hope's perspective brings the quiet desperation of a woman who did not have those tools, or even the language, to explore her pain. What makes The Best We Could Hope For so compelling is how it refuses to fall into simple moral binaries. There are no villains in this story, only people doing their best with the tools they were given. Even when Hope makes decisions that clearly damage Sarah, the narrative invites us to understand her rather than condemn her. This compassionate lens never excuses harmful behavior, but it contextualizes it in a way that deepens the emotional resonance of the novel. Kraus is particularly adept at capturing the little cruelties of family life, the loaded silences, the passive-aggressive remarks, the withheld affections that leave permanent scars. But she is also attuned to the beauty that can emerge from those same bonds, moments of quiet understanding, unexpected tenderness, and the hard-won forgiveness that only comes from truly seeing another person in their entirety. A meditation on motherhood and identity. Motherhood is perhaps the central preoccupation of the novel. Kraus interrogates the many myths surrounding it: the self-sacrificing mother, the natural instinct, the idea that becoming a parent is inherently redemptive or healing. For Sarah, the looming reality of motherhood forces her to examine her own identity. Can she become the kind of mother she never had? Will she simply recreate the dynamics she grew up with, despite her best intentions? And perhaps most poignantly, does she want to become a mother at all? Kraus is unafraid to explore the taboo topics surrounding maternal ambivalence. Sarah's anxiety, her doubts, and her fear of failing her unborn child are portrayed with a rawness that many readers, especially women, will find deeply relatable. There is a sense throughout the novel that modern women are expected to heal generations of trauma while also achieving professional success, maintaining romantic relationships, and cultivating a sense of inner peace. That impossible burden is laid bare in Sarah's journey, and Kraus gives her character the space to grapple with it fully. Intergenerational trauma and the hope for change. The Best We Could Hope For takes its title from a line that might sound cynical at first blush but is, in context, deeply poignant. It is about reckoning with the limitations of our parents while still honoring the effort they made, however flawed. It is about the hope that we might do better, even if we cannot entirely undo the damage done. Kraus explores how trauma is not just passed down through dramatic events but through the accumulation of small, often invisible injuries. The mother who never hugged her child, the father who left, the silence at the dinner table. These subtle wounds shape our attachments, our self-worth, our sense of the world. Yet the novel is not without hope. One of its most powerful messages is that awareness is the first step toward change. By confronting the past and refusing to look away, Sarah begins to forge a new path, not one free from struggle. Intention, consciousness, and love, literary strengths and stylistic choices, Kraus's prose is elegant, controlled, and emotionally incisive. She uses language not to dazzle but to distill, to cut to the emotional core of a moment with precision. There are passages in this novel that feel like knife cuts, clean and painful. And yet, her writing is never bleak. Even in its darkest moments, the novel is suffused with warmth, humor, and humanity. Structurally, the book moves between past and present, sometimes shifting perspectives without warning. For some readers, this may feel jarring, but for others, it reflects the fractured nature of memory and trauma. The nonlinear approach mirrors the way we revisit the past, not in neat chronological order, but in bursts, echoes, and painful recollections that intrude on the present. Kraus also integrates therapeutic language into the narrative. Terms like attachment styles and inner child work appear without irony. While this could feel clinical in less capable hands, here it feels authentic to Sarah's voice and experience. For readers familiar with therapy, it will feel like a breath of validation. For others, it may serve as an introduction to a new way of understanding emotional inheritance. Final thoughts. A brave, beautiful novel, the best we could hope for, is not an easy read, but it is an essential one. It is a novel that dares to ask difficult questions. What do we owe our children? What do we owe our parents? What happens when love is not enough to shield us from pain? And how do we move forward with grace, even when the past refuses to let us go? Nicola Kraus has written a book that is both timely and timeless. Deeply personal and broadly resonant. It is a novel that will stay with you long after the last page is turned, not because it offers tidy resolutions, but because it invites you to live inside the questions. For anyone who has ever grappled with the legacy of family, for anyone who has feared becoming their mother, or struggled to forgive her, The Best We Could Hope For is a novel that will speak to your heart with clarity and courage.